The KP Law News. Block cameras in the news these past months, and a lot of communities are getting rid of them. Some are voting them in, some are voting them out. A lot of rogue police officers are getting busted for using them illegally. Lake City, Florida, voted against putting block camera question on the November ballots. Now, this video we're going to watch is from the city council meeting, the latest city council meeting where they voted down. But let me go over a quick article real quick from News for Jacks here in Jacksonville. This is out of Lake City. A proposal to let Lake City voters weigh in on whether the city should continue using automatic license plate readers cameras failed Monday night with the city council voting 2-3 against sending the question to the November ballot. The Lake City Council was set to take up a debate playing out in communities across the country the use of camera and sensor technology that can track vehicles and collect data, and whether it's a public safety tool or an overreach. I say overreach. The safety don't weigh out the use. At Monday night, council members discussed flock cameras and considered resolution number 2026-094, which should have put the issue on a November ballot, polling voters on whether Lake City should keep using automatic license plate reader cameras. If approved, the measure would have appeared during a special election Tuesday, November 3rd, held in conjunction with Florida's 2026 general election. The debate grew passionate comments from council members and residents alike, reflecting a broader national conversation about public safety, privacy, and the role of government surveillance. What voters would have been asked. According to the resolution, voters would have been asked whether the city of Lake City or its contractors should continue installing and maintaining automatic license plate readers and cameras that collect and store license plate and other vehicle data. The proposed ballot language stated that a vote yes would support continued installation and maintenance, while a vote no would oppose it. City documents also stressed the result would be non binding, meaning the vote would not automatically change city policy without further action by city leaders, but it would show where voters stand. Council weighs safety against civil liberties. Councilman James Carter, who supported putting the question to voters, framed this issue in constitutional terms. Government should not search people without a warrant. Private companies do not have the ability to arrest you. Carter acknowledged that cameras have shown results, but questioned whether effectiveness alone justifies their use. Sometimes it does, he said, of catching criminals. The question, I would argue, is whether the usefulness alone justifies it. This is a much broader issue of building a surveillance state. These items make me uncomfortable, and they should. Carter ultimately argued the community should have a direct say. I think that we should put it to the voters, and I'm curious what you guys think. Supporters point to crime reduction. Councilman Young pushed back, arguing that cameras have made a tangible difference in Lake City. They were placed for safety. They have made a great difference for our city. Before the flock cameras, crime was getting all the attention. Young dismissed privacy concerns by knowing surveillance is already widespread. We're always on camera. They made a great difference, and we expect them to keep making a difference in our city. Councilman Jernigan echoed that settlement. The flock cameras is needed in certain areas of our community. If we have more pros than we have cons, then we need to keep them. Residents' public comment reflected the same divide. One resident, Dre Sharp, seeks to be private governmental surveillance. That's right. And the police, he gets up and talks. Of course, he's going to talk about him. We'll see this in the video. So that's just the cap or the little story to what the video we're going to watch. It's about an hour or so long. I have it sped up to a little fast. I got the captions on. So I'll sit back and let it play. And I might see you at the end. I might not. All right. So let's play this video and get busy.
11, then discussion and possible action of flock cameras. And this is brought forward by Mr. Carter.
All right. Hello, Council, Mr. Mayor. I brought forward this item for discussion, and I have kind of an idea I'd like to share with you guys. Obviously, if you've seen the packet, you've seen at least part of the idea. Topic that's getting a lot more and more attention these days. Flock cameras and the like, automatic license plate readers, the cameras that you kind of see and pop up on poles all over the place. A lot of people find these things, they make them uncomfortable. A lot of people find them to be a violation of Fourth Amendment rights to privacy. Primarily the idea that they are collecting data from citizens without a warrant, storing that data, holding that data. A frequent argument for, and I've prepared a small statement for this, but a frequent argument for this type of surveillance is that if you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about. But that's not the point. The Fourth Amendment isn't about whether or not citizens have something to hide. It's based on the principle that government should not monitor or search people without appropriate legal justification. Rights belong to innocent people because they're innocent people. Another common argument is private companies track you already. What's the big deal? There's myriad differences between private companies and the government. Private companies do not have the ability to arrest you, prosecute you, exercise the powers of the state against you. Comparing the two is a false equivalency. And just because large corporations are compiling data on its customers does not necessarily give the government a right to be complicit in the establishment of what effectively becomes a digital dossier of your private and ostensibly innocent citizens. The main argument that you hear in favor of these is that this type of surveillance helps catch bad guys, and sometimes it does. The question I would argue is whether surveillance isn't whether or not surveillance like this can be useful, but whether the usefulness alone justifies the expanding of government power over everybody else. If convenience is the standard, constitutional limits will eventually be treated as mere obstacles instead of protection. When I brought this up to staff, and I spoke to a couple members of staff about this, someone said, London, is the most surveilled city in the Western world. And it's true. Upon looking it up, London has over 800,000 closed circuit television cameras across the city. They say that the average Londoner is on camera roughly 300 times a day. You effectively can't go anywhere in London without being on one of these cameras. Most of those cameras were installed since the mid-1980s. If you look at crime statistics for London since 1980 to now, it's pretty even. So they've increased by nearly 1 million cameras in the city, and everyone's on camera all the time. But they have not necessarily had a statistical effect, so to speak, on the crime stats in London. So I would argue that this is a much broader issue about developing the beginning pieces of a surveillance state. I don't really want to be in communist China, and I don't really want to be in London. I believe we fought a war to not be London. So for me, these items make me uncomfortable. I don't like the idea that anyone is tracking and storing data on any innocent citizen without a warrant or without cause. That being said, I've talked to a lot of people about this particular issue. I've listened to a lot of folks talk about it, and it is very divided. So I've just shared with you my opinion, but I would say that I do not feel like I've heard the argument lean hard one direction or the other. I've heard a lot of people share my opinion, and a lot of people say, hey, they made me feel safer, etc. So what I'm proposing we do, if the council will humor me, is I got with Mr. Martin, had him draw up a pretty simple referendum. We have the unique opportunity this year and this time with the election coming up to add a question to the ballot in November, and you'll see that's attached here. It's in the packet that was released this morning. And also I think it was on the dais with everybody here. Mr. Mayor, would I ask the attorney to read this?
Yeah, that was my next step, was before we go to public comment. Mr. Martin, will you please read the resolution prepared by title?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Council members, you have before you resolution number 2026-094, a resolution of the City of Lake City, Florida, calling for a non-binding referendum question to be placed before the qualified voters of the City of Lake City at a special election to be held on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2026, in conjunction with the 2026 State of Florida general election, providing a non-binding referendum question determining whether the City of Lake City or its contractors shall continue installation and maintenance of automatic license plate readers and cameras that collect and store license plate and other vehicular data, providing for requisite ballot language, providing direction to the city clerk, repealing all resolutions in conflict, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Mr. Ray, if I can just wrap up my thoughts.
Sure.
The reason I wanted to put this question to the voters is because, like I said, I've heard quite a lot of voters in full support of this, quite a lot of them against it. And I think it's because generally speaking, we're elected to do the hard stuff and make the decisions and things like that. So I'm not for putting every decision or everything we have before us in front of the voters for poll after poll after poll. We are a representative government, not a democracy as such. But this to me constitutes such a cultural concept. Like if this has to do, and because while we still have home rule in Florida, this gives us the opportunity, if we want to be the kind of community that has these things and does this stuff, or if we don't, we have the opportunity to be or not to be. So in that case, didn't mean to Shakespeare that one, but in that case, we can find out from the voters in a couple of months, and everyone who feels strongly about this can have a couple of months to make their cases. So I think that we should put it to the voters, and I'd be interested to hear what you guys think.
Prior to public comment, does anybody have any thoughts?
I just want to ask one question. How did you get this attorney to do anything before they spoke? It was brought to us first.
I asked if he could write a,
Is that legal?
I'm sorry.
Is that legal
It is legal.
for
I
either
mean,
one of us to come to you for a referendum before the rest of the council is notified about?
Well, it's a resolution, and I routinely draft resolutions at the request of council members to accomplish whatever it is they need to get in front of council.
Yeah, we do it
That's
all the time.
way these matters typically are brought before council is by resolution. So
Ms. Young?
No, we don't do it all the time. First of all, let's make that clear. We don't do it all the time. And it's too much that we've desperately needed to get done and not been able to get it done. And we get a resolution in
Right.
that, no. But besides all of that, I want to speak on the flock cameras. First of all, they were placed there for safety. They have made a great difference in our city. We don't live in London, we live in Lake City. And I believe you said that, let me see, I wrote it down. Flock has gotten much attention. The cameras have gotten much attention. That's what you said. But before the flock cameras, crime was getting all the attention. So which do we want to get the most attention? There has been, and I'm sure somebody will probably call Chief up, there has been a great difference in crime in our city. And these flock cameras have made the difference. And one other thing I thought about is that, and I know people are uncomfortable, but I mean, get it, cameras are everywhere now. We're always on camera. You have cameras at your home? You don't have cameras at your home? Well, I have them at mine. And anybody pass, it's gonna read it. And some have it, they call it out. They don't just read it, they announce who's passing. And I think that's very important. The safety of our elderly people to get crime down in our city, they're there. And I was one of the ones who voted it in. And I will today, well, we won't vote today, but I say they're there. They made a great difference, and we expect them to keep making a difference in our city, that our citizens are safe, and that's what matters.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Mr. Jernigan?
Thank you, Mayor. Let's just think about this for a minute or so. Flock cameras. I think there was citizens that wanted flock cameras in this community for certain reasons. Now that we got the flock cameras, now that we have citizens want to probably remove the cameras. I mean, I've been in law enforcement for a long time. I don't think anybody up here has been in law enforcement as much as the chief has. And when we get into flock cameras, I think that the chief, again, I said, I think that the chief can come up here and help us direct the citizens of this community and to make sure that the flock cameras are doing exactly what they are supposed to do. And anything other than what they're supposed to do, if we have somebody violating that, that person should be, or persons should be terminated. I don't care if it's a contract. I don't care if it's a law enforcement officer, whatever the case may be. But the flock cameras, it is needed in certain areas of our community. And we're always,
Don't do
almost
that.
always on video, and some of us be on audio. For example, you can run this red light up here and they can look at that and tell who hit who from that red light. But what I like to see is the chief of this city come up and tell us the pros versus the cons. If we have more pros than we have cons, I think we should keep them. But if we have more cons than we have pros, I think we should eliminate them. So, Chief, Mayor, can I do that?
Yeah, come on up, Chief. We haven't defined a proposition. Yeah.
To be clear, if it isn't clear, the suggestion, and this is the suggestion is putting the question on the ballot, and it is a non-binding referendum. All it will do, if we add it to it, is inform us what the voters feel about the issue. It doesn't change the rule. that we don't change afterwards. Like if we get back a thing and it comes back and it's 90% voters say they love it, then my recommendation would be that we do nothing.
Come on, Chief.
Let me define something for the crowd real fast. Chief, you can go ahead and come on up. Once the motion is seconded, then we'll move to public comment on it. So we'll have a motion, a second, public comment, and then council comments and questions will further.
For the sake of procedure, should I go ahead
Sure,
and make a motion
please.
if one's to be made? Mr. Mayor, I move to approve City Council Resolution 2026-09.
For discussion, I'll second it. So we have a motion and a second. We'll now have, Chief, if you'll mind just stepping aside, we'll have public comment now for procedural purpose. And then we'll have Chief come back up and answer questions and comments. We'll begin our public comments with Mr. Eric Tober.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it's good to see you all here again. I had a good time speaking to you all last time regarding the flock cameras. I didn't know that Mr. Carter felt about them the way that he does, so I would like to bring forth a couple of more points. A couple of points that were made now by Ms. Young, Ms. Harris, that we are always on video. Our communities need this. I'm not sure if the public knows, but there's a very large distinction between being on video on privately owned cameras versus on cameras that are owned by the government. If law enforcement wants to pull footage from privately owned cameras, they need probable cause. They need a warrant. It is not at their disposition at all time whenever they want it. The cameras that we're referring to, there is no warrant required. Your information is stored for at least 30 days. It is viewed by any law enforcement officer with a investigation as they deem it so, and there is no protection for your privacy in the sense of, in order for them to pull the footage, they need a warrant. It's available at all times. And when you mentioned, Ms. Young, that you have cameras at your dwelling, that's great. I do too. The difference is that law enforcement cannot log in there and see what I'm doing at my residence. They can't see what I'm doing in my front yard, right? And these cameras, they can. That is a big difference. In my remaining time, I'm not sure if you all are familiar with the book 1984, where Winston is living in a society, in a civilization where there is surveillance in every corner. You cannot breathe without that being surveilled. Is that the kind of society that we want, where you are being surveilled in your every move, whether you are a law-abiding citizen or not? We look at China, that has long been said to have an oppressive mass surveillance system. What difference is the one that we are creating here? Because if we look back to COVID, a very interesting thing that happened, thankfully not in the state of Florida, but throughout the United States, was that unconstitutional mandates were imposed by local communities, counties, and governors that were unconstitutional and trampled upon the rights of citizens, and yet nothing was done for a period of time. Now imagine if those things were imposed. Do not leave your home. Do not go to place X, Y, and Z. With the surveillance infrastructure that we're creating now, it would be impossible to escape, right? And if it said that you're supposed to be a good boy for the government, you're not supposed to do anything wrong, I agree with that. But sometimes the definitions of right and wrong change. And if you're equipping the government with this infrastructure, it's a dangerous thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Up next, we have Mr. Sylvester Warren.
Sylvester Warren. Mr. Carter, I want to say something to you real quick, and I'm gonna get into it. One, I don't know anything about your people fighting the war to be free from London. It was my ancestors that helped your ancestors to be free from London. Then your ancestors turned around and enslaved my ancestors and created chattel slavery. That's the history of the London issue. So I want to get that clear. So to expand on this whole issue is, let's have a moment of truth. How did these flock cameras come about? We panicked. We were having a crime issue in Lake City. We panicked. Nobody wants to tell the truth. I came up with the flock camera idea in the license plate reader. Chevelle Young can tell you when she want to be honest. The chief first came up behind me, and Madam Clerk, if they think I'm lying, I want that public records request as well, where I was here at the podium. I asked for the flock cameras. The chief said it was a bad idea and a waste of money. Ms. Young called me and told me that the chief was going to come a few months later and represent it because it was a good idea after the fact. We did not know as much about the flock cameras as we do now. We were just trying to do anything we could to get a reset on the crime. When that happens and we find out that something that we have done, even though it may have helped with the issue, if it violates the Constitution, because that democracy stuff y'all think we are not, we're a republic, we're a nation of laws. So if the nation of laws, which is our Constitution, is being violated, then we have a moral obligation, and you all have a constitutional obligation to make sure that that Fourth Amendment is not being infringed upon. regardless of what it do and what it don't do, what it fix and what it does not fix. It does not give us the right to violate the Fourth Amendment. And every statistic and every study and everything I've watched, it is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. And you're going to find yourselves getting sued like other cities and municipalities are being sued, and cops going to jail for looking into information they should be looking into information for. Do you want that to be the headlines of Lake City? That would be my question. Crime can always be adjusted and fixed and fought in other ways. But you start violating the Constitution and you start giving Big Brother more power than he's supposed to have and start circumventing the Constitution, then what good is it? I couldn't even stand up here and speak. I'm not going to give up my fourth or my first. I'm not going to give up my first or my fourth. So I say put it on the damn ballot. Good job.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Up next, we have Mr. David Nobles.
Hello, my name is David Nobles. I live here in Lake City. Members of the council, I'm here today to address the flock cameras, the flock safety automated license plate readers. As for law enforcement, I think they should have the modern tools that we have at our disposal to solve crime, but we need to be very cautious when thinking about the idea of mass surveillance without oversight, especially when it comes to the Constitution, because the reality of the situation is there is more options for transparency and there's accountability when it comes to local law enforcement and it comes to local municipalities that isn't going to be equal when it's a third party. This is a private company. Now, the court has allowed license plate readers, and they've reaffirmed that throughout recent history with things like red lights, as was brought up earlier. But the thing is, there's a distinction. Courts allow license plate readers under the assumption that they are intermittent public observation, single snapshots of vehicles on public roads. Flock does not operate as an isolated camera system. When incorporated into and across multiplied systems integrated into the Flock OS ecosystem, combining license plate readers, real-time videos, and CAD dispatch, it stops being an intermittent snapshot and becomes a continuous location tracking. Under the Mosaic theory put forth in Carpenter versus the United States, 2018, and Charta, I might be mispronouncing that, versus the United States in 2016, the Supreme Court ruled that citizens retain a reasonable expectation of privacy in the whole of their physical movements, even on public roads. More importantly, for the council, here's something to consider. Corporate liability shifts. Flock's legal defense relies on the idea that they are a third party. Therefore, when there's utilization between private companies, HOAs, commercial zoning, neighboring departments, when the legal challenges are brought up about mass surveillance reach the court, the Flock Corporation's attorneys will step back, leaving our municipality government and our taxpayers to foot the bill for civil lawsuits, because that's how they're structured. They're designed to be a Mott and Bailey to circumvent being held accountable. There's also a significant amount of concern on whether they're just license plate readers, because they also use technology to mark individual markers on vehicles like roof racks, bumper stickers, and also facial recognition software. On top of this, they can be utilized to ping the Bluetooth in your phone to track where you go and who is passing by. I would like to just point out that there is ways to have accountability. And Benjamin Franklin said,
Thank you, Mr. Nobles. Up next, we have Mr. Mark Eschbach.
It's good to be back. Mr. Carter, thank you for putting your face on this and putting yourself on the line. Mayor, thank you for responding to my email. Better late than never. So to address the remark of we're not London, we're not Los Angeles either, but the LAPD, not the city, the police department, one of the biggest in the country, cut their contract with Flock due to privacy and constitutional amendment concerns. If that police department's cutting it, that should tell you something. But we're not Los Angeles, I guess. So maybe we shouldn't do it. Although I think we should. And then to continue, I'm glad the technology is being mentioned of, and I'm glad somebody mentioned what's essentially called signal trace, where they can capture signals from your cell phone or anyone else in your car. Now, as a cybersecurity student, cellular data usually requires, unless I'm being taught wrong in my school, cellular data usually requires a warrant. Phones can get taken and put in Faraday bags so they can't transmit or receive signal. And then once a warrant's received, they crack the phone, get data. And I'm going to quote this quote: "He who would give up his Fourth Amendment right because he has nothing to hide would give up their First Amendment right because they have nothing to say." I have nothing to hide, but I don't live in a glass house, and I got something to say because clearly I'm here saying it. And I also want to make clear, should this come to the vote and the citizens vote no, does this just say no flock cameras? Because you have Axon, which the police forces usually know because that's body cameras. Are we going to get ALPRs from Axon, Gentech, Genoptic, Leonardo, Motorola Solutions? There are other companies with skin in this game, and they are actively watching cities that pull their flock contracts like vultures so they can slip right in and then put their cameras in place. In fact, Axon already has a solution to people cutting down poles. They're just putting them right on traffic lights now. Getting more trouble cutting down a traffic pole than you would a regular camera pole. Not that I advocate for either, but that's their solution instead of just not making the cameras altogether. And I guess a little on more of a personal note, I went to the OCLR range recently just out of curiosity to see if it was open. And I frequented that place in my 4 years of living here. They got 2 cameras at that range, one pointing towards the parking lot and towards one of the ranges, and one pointing away from the parking lot. So if anyone watching or in here is an avid practitioner of their Second Amendment rights, now it's on camera, stored who's going to the range, when they're going, and how long they're going there for once it opens back up. And as a gun owner and someone who practices their rights, you cannot, to me, convince me in any way, shape, or form how that's okay. I've been to that range for as long as I've been here. We police ourselves there. I've had nothing but great experiences, especially when people come out of town to our range because it's a free range. So that is a more of a close to home, very concerning thing to me. Not to say that you can't have government with gun ownership, but usually that's a very fine line that gets towed. So again, I think this should go to vote, and to reiterate my very important question, does this vote just mean no more flock safety, or does this mean no more ALPR technology, period? Because again, these other companies are watching for cities to pull their flock contracts, like vultures, like hyenas, swoop right in to put their technology in place where the other ones left. I'll yield back the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eschbaugh. All right, up next, we have Ms. B. Faithful Coker.
Good evening, council. So fear is the reason for the imposition of the flock cameras. And if fear was the reason for the imposition, I caution you to not now act out of fear of litigation. Columbia County currently has approximately 30 unsolved murders. On June 15, 2018, my brother's murder became one of those in the presence of other people who, out of fear, reprisal, and other reasons, chose not to identify the person who walked up and shot my brother in front of them. Had we have had flock cameras, not only could it have helped assist law enforcement, it could have provided some assistance to some of the other 30 unsolved murders. If in fact, Amendment 4 is being violated and the flock cameras are as much in discussion as it has been conveyed, then you don't need a referendum to pull them. As soon as it's deemed to violate the Constitution, the existence stops. So in bringing this issue to citizens on referendum, given the reason to cause doubt in the resources and tools that law enforcement's using to protect us, you put us in harm's way. We don't live in a community where people come forward and identify crime that's being committed. We don't even live in a community where people can come and address this council without reprisal. Until we are at a place where safety is totally provided to citizens, they need assistance to get justice. And that assistance comes by way of flock cameras. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Coker. All right.
And so are you a trophy.
Thank you, guys. We will now close public comment and move straight to council questions, comments. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. The first thing I would like to say is my Fourth Amendment right ain't worth a darn if I'm in the grave. And this flock camera compared to my Fourth Amendment right makes no sense. I just can't make no sense out of that. There have been, as someone has already stated, murder solved. There has been children who has been found through flock cameras, and that happened just last week. Probably about 8 years ago, I was stopped by probably 8 to 10 law enforcement, and yes, it was Lake City. I was stopped because my car supposedly had been identified to be a car who they were looking for. All the officers, all the way across the road, had guns pointed. I had 3, 4 of my grandchildren in the vehicle. My grandchild, who is with me now, was 8 months old. They yelled, "Put your hands up." Even the 8-year-old put his hands up. All of us terrified. And to this day, nobody stood up and said it happened. The cameras were edited. When I watched the camera, nothing that had happened was able to be viewed on that camera, but I know what happened. But had flock cameras been there, I wouldn't have had to depend on even law enforcement cameras. And I'm just being real, people. They are necessary because law enforcement are humans too. And we're in 2026. Amendments, our Fourth Amendment, our right to speak, our right to privacy. What good is privacy if you're in the grave? We need these flock cameras. We need the safety. And if you can't think about it for yourself, if it's not for yourself, think about your neighbor. Think about the elderly who can't speak for themselves. Think about the children who can't speak for themselves. And the citizens put you here to make a sound decision. And you're going to throw it back at them. We have a responsibility here. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out this is safety. The chief has come up and spoken, and still we can't get it. Again, we're in 2026. We're in 2026. We're in 2026. It's not like it was when we were inside the house and sleep with our windows up. How many you lock your door at night? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Mr. Jernigan.
Yes, I still would like the chief to come up and tell us the pros and cons of these cameras. Again, if it's more cons, I'm not for it. But if it's more pros, I'm gonna be for the flock camera. I mean, just think about it. My heart goes out to somebody like Ms. Coker here, her brother. I know of another situation that happened, and we were able to solve that with the flock camera. So in other words, for the most parts it's needed. There are some cases that it's not. But if it's not doing what it's supposed to do and they're gathering information on any of us, including me, I'm not for something like that. So I'm hoping that these cameras is not violating anybody's rights. And if we have a law enforcement agency here and he is responsible for law and order, and he doesn't feel that it's necessary to have them, or if he feels like it's necessary to have them, I would like to know. I want everybody to know what he knows. So I'm gonna leave it up to you, Chief.
One correction first, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I said you heard, but I meant to say you were here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young.
Sorry, Chief.
All right. So Mr. Jernigan's asked you to present about flock cameras.
Sure. When I became chief about 5 years ago, obviously we had a gun violence issue in the city. We still have gun violence. However, the flock system, along with other law enforcement techniques, have contributed to significantly reducing the amount of gun violence in the city. You don't have to believe me. Look at the actual numbers. They're there. Mayor, you were with me at a meeting up in the North End with some of the church members, and they thanked us for everything we're doing for the violence up in those communities. And that's a positive. So, and again, when I became chief, every member of the council, current members and former members, met with me and said, Chief, we need to do something about the gun violence. Well, we have. The numbers show our gun violence is down. Again, this is in part because of the license plate reader system. People are coming up talking about Fourth Amendment. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. No court with jurisdiction has determined that a license plate reader system is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. When they do, the Lake City Police Department will immediately alter our processes to conform, to conform to whatever that court's jurisdiction says needs to be done. And if that's,
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time? Repeat that one more time.
no court with jurisdiction, to the best of my knowledge, has ruled that the license plate reader systems are a violation of the Fourth Amendment. And I'll tell you, if they say it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment, they get turned off immediately, because that will be the order of the court. We wouldn't even have a choice in the matter. Now, let me highlight some of the cases that this system has helped take care of in the Lake City. And also I've got some from the Highway Patrol. Home invasion. Multiple armed home invasions were announcing themselves as law enforcement officers, then kicking indoors and holding all members of households at gunpoint. This includes children. They would then ransack the home. 5 suspects were ultimately identified and arrested after the vehicle was identified through the flock license plate reader system. Attempted murder. After identifying a suspect while utilizing our flock system, 2 suspects were identified and arrested for attempted murder after chasing down a vehicle and shooting the driver. We currently have a racketeering case open where people are coming from out of state and committing robberies, and we're using the flock system to track their movements on the highway. Now, when people talk about facial recognition, the flock system takes a picture of the back of the vehicle, the license plate and the vehicle. It does use artificial intelligence. If you have a gun rack or a luggage rack or damage to the car, if you've got bumper stickers or something along those lines, we have used that feature in order to try and identify the vehicles. It does not take a picture of the driver. The system that we have is not tied into the 911 system. It is not tied into any kind of combined system with the county. It's a standalone. It takes the picture. It doesn't seize your cell phone information, which would require a warrant. I will agree with that. Our Internet Crimes Against Children's unit regularly uses the flock license plate reader system as a critical tool to identify the travelers, the reason we call them travelers, They come from outside the area into Lake City in order to do what they with children. This system has directly identified 15 suspects who've traveled to what they believe to be minor children for unlawful sexual activity in the city. We have additional ones here. The homicide on Ashley Street. Flock was utilized by using the artificial intelligence to provide, because all the witnesses were able to provide was a description of the vehicle, not the plate. Because of the Flock's ability to search for vehicles without a tag, we were able to locate the vehicle and the registered owner. 2 suspects were then arrested and convicted. As far as using the system, officers have to log on, dual authentication, which means it goes to their city-issued cell phone. Then they have to hit the acknowledge button with the facial recognition, because that's how they log into the phone with the Face ID, like all the phones do now. When they log on, they have to put in a case number and the type of call that they're doing the research on. My operations lieutenant monthly gets an audit to see who's running the plates, to see if there's any patterns. The system will also tell us if there's unusual activity, something we need to keep an eye on. I'll give you a perfect example. We have a detective that's looking for a vehicle. She was running the plate. She accidentally transposed 2 of the case numbers. It flagged it saying there's a problem here. Not that I don't trust my lieutenant, but I keep the gunshot detection system on my computer in my office, which is part of the Flock system. About once a week, I jump onto the audit trail to make sure the lieutenant's auditing what he's supposed to be auditing. So we are keeping an eye on that. Again, like the councilwoman said, a 13-year-old girl who was abducted from Ocala in June was saved after the Flock system picked up the car on the highway from the highway patrol. There was a hit in Georgia regarding a warrant for kidnapping. The trooper stopped the vehicle. 2 children who were in fact kidnapped were in the vehicle and they were rescued. On January 31st of 25, a vehicle versus bicycle crash occurred on 90 in Columbia County. After the crash, the vehicle fled the scene, leaving an 8-year-old girl with fatal injuries. FHP, using the Flock system, was able to identify the vehicle and made an arrest. We have other items here, and I know everybody's going to say about giving up your freedoms and everything. We take that very seriously. We only use the system for legitimate law enforcement purposes. And the numbers prove it as far as the violent crime being down. There's still work to be done now. Is it only the license plate readers or the gunshot detection? No. We've worked hard to develop relationships with the community so they'll feel freer to call us when something's going on. However, that is a critical component, and I'm concerned that if we do remove that, that could affect our ability to keep the violent crime rate down, along with other investigations.
You go ahead, Mr. Jernigan, finish your question thought.
So, let me be clear now. So you said you in favor of the camera system, am I correct?
If I wasn't, I would have recommended getting rid of them before this.
Yes. So and you oversee that that system, am I correct?
For Lake City, yes.
Yeah, that's all I'm concerned with right now is Lake City, and nobody's rights, constitutional rights, since you've been there, have been violated, from my understanding.
And no court has determined that it is a violation of the rights.
Okay, Chief, I really appreciate that.
And so everybody's aware, the gun range, that's a state camera, that is not property or leased by us. The camera that is at the Montgomery boat ramp, that's FWC, that is not us. A couple people called me up thinking we put a license plate reader at the aquatic center by the pool. That is part of the gunshot detection system. That is not a license plate reader system. So there are many more gunshot detection poles around the city than there are LPRs.
Ms. Harris.
Chief, I have a couple of questions. How long have these Flock cameras been in use?
About 5 years now, 4 years.
About 5 years. And in that 5 years, 5 to 4 years, we'll say, you said that the crime rate has went down.
Correct. The violent crime.
All right. That includes murder.
Yes.
So I think we can all agree that it is very important for us to be safe, and we want our family and friends and our neighbors to be safe. We understand that. But when it comes to infringing on people's Fourth Amendment rights, I kind of take pause to it. Now, in District 12, I'm just going to talk about District 12. If it was left up to me, I would love for the cameras to stay. And I would love for the cameras to stay because it does make me feel safer. Now, y'all not getting people that's running the stop signs or anything, but I think that it would make me feel safe. But for it to go, anything that we have to rush and vote on, like this referendum, it could be a possible good idea, but I'd like to go home and sleep on something before I just say, yeah, put it on there. Anything I feel like I'm rushed to do, I don't think that's a good idea.
If I could add though, you mentioned it. If I'm told to take those down, that also means the school zone cameras will not go up because part of a critical component of that are the LPRs.
Mr. Carter.
So I'll start out by saying everything bad any government's ever done has had good reasons to do it, according to that government. When when Mr. Jernigan drives past one of those cameras, does it take a picture of the back of his car and apply AI to the mirrors and the rooftop and the color and stuff like that?
It captures that information, yes.
And when I do, it does, and all these folks do, it does. I would say again, like I said at the beginning, ostensibly this is a room full of innocent people, and my suggestion is that the government shouldn't be collecting data on innocent people without cause, which is the whole point. Like I said again, I feel like if I were in the chief's shoes, I would probably feel the way the chief does. Obviously, it's a tool, and obviously that tool has a value. My point of view comes from the perspective of our rights, which generally speaking, the chief is put into a position, and his job is to try to solve crimes, keep crime low, all that sort of stuff. He's doing what makes perfect sense to him. But legislators and people in our position generally are more focused on things like the rights and the policies of the community. So the suggestion is only, again, to ask, and if someone asked about this earlier, I will be clear. The question that I'm suggesting we put on the ballot says, installation, maintenance, and of automatic license plate readers and cameras that collect and store license plate data on and other vehicle data. Voting yes, support such installation. Voting no, oppose to such installation. This is a non-binding referendum. The city of Lake City will not result in any changes to current law without further action. So to be clear, what it will be telling us, it's effectively a poll. It's a straw poll. We're just asking the community what they think about it. We're getting their opinion. I think that it is worth, and because we have the opportunity, because there is an election coming up, we've already paid the supervisor elections to manage our election, or to handle our election. We have the opportunity to add this with no additional cost. Special election referendums like that oftentimes cost tens of thousands of dollars to hold separately, but we're already paying for an election to be held. This, it checks the temperature of the community. I think if, like I said before, no matter what my personal opinion on this is, if we get this back and the community is an overwhelming support of using these things, then I'll say, I have clearly a minority opinion. I'm just not bullish on it. I'm not trying to ram my opinion down everybody else's throat, if you will. But I have experienced quite a lot of pros and or anti and for this. And like I said, this is not just here. There's cities all over the state and all over the country are asking similar questions and trying to get to the bottom of whether or not they want to be this sort of place. For me personally,
I have a question,
not.
Chief. I have noticed there has been a great decline of police presence. I don't see police officers riding around and as much as once upon a time they were. Are you guys relying on this flock of more versus people actually seeing police officers out and about?
Well, one of the issues, the call volume has been going up steadily over the last few years, and the officers are on calls for service instead of patrolling. We have had some staffing issues, which I've been addressing. Actually, we just brought 4 more recruits into our FTO program, and part of that will go to patrol. But right now, the main issue is our call volume is increasing, and we've got to respond to the calls for service.
Mr. Carter, you had another question?
Yeah, one more clarification. The topic that we're talking about now, and this does not include, and I have not brought up anything about the gunshot detection system. That is a sonar type triangulation device that, from my opinion, I don't have any particular issues with it, and it does seem to be very effective at isolating where a gun was fired and when. So to be clear, this question is only about cameras. It has nothing to do, and it doesn't specify flock.
Well, with the cameras, does that include the security cameras in the parks? Does that include my in-car cameras? So I have questions as far as, are you looking at that? And the LPRs, the city's LPRs, I can't talk about anybody else's. The Lake City LPRs are only pointed at city streets. They are not pointed at any private properties. The ones you see at the businesses, the ones you see at some of the apartment complexes, those are privately owned license plate readers. Those are not ours.
I would say no. The way this reads specifically, license plate readers and cameras that collect and store license plate and other vehicular data specifically. Also, there is a whole other issue with the fact that this data, a gentleman mentioned it earlier, but that this data is stored privately. It isn't, we're not owning and holding it. If we put a camera outside this building or at the park or whatever, we own that data. The government has the data, which means the people own the data. There's a whole other issue with a private organization like Flock collecting all of this data, selling this data. And again, like I said, we're entering this world where people have the ability, the big tech companies have the ability to track so much of the stuff already, and we don't have control over it, right? We don't have control of what Walmart does. Whenever you use your Winn-Dixie card, they're keeping track of what you're buying habits and things like this. They're developing a digital dossier. My suggestion is that the government itself does not have to be complicit in the process of compiling us into a bunch of numbers and selling those numbers to the highest bidder so that people can better market to us, better track us, and effectively digitally read our minds.
Well, as far as the cameras go, and IT can correct me if I'm wrong, but the city has been moving toward all the cameras being stored on the cloud, not on city servers. So they're moving toward that. Our financials are all stored by a private company that does, the finance department works through, does our payroll, has all of our personal information. I understand the concern, but also the fact that a third party, we do that more and more. You're going to see less and less massive servers because there's financially, you just can't keep them up and running. The IT department, I see them always on the servers in-house, like my RMS system with the smart cop. They're always on there maintaining it, updating it, patches, this. When you have the cloud, then that's not an issue. I understand your concern that, if something's inside the building, we have control of it. But, the way everything's moving now with the cloud, they've got a lot of security, and none of our CJIS, criminal justice information, none of the information captured by Flock is CJIS. Everything is visible from the public. You really have no expectation of privacy on a city street. Now, inside your vehicle, you do, but driving by, you do not.
Real quick, could you reiterate what data the plate collectors collect? They're not pinging anybody's Bluetooth or pulling any data off cell phone.
We pay for the license plate reader.
Okay.
As a car goes by, it takes a picture of the back of the vehicle. Obviously, it gets the rear license plate. It captures the vehicle itself, part of the hood, or usually the entire top of the car. Most of the time, we can't even tell if there's somebody inside the car, never mind who they are. That's where we get with our investigations and start looking into who would possibly be the operator. Now, if you had probable cause, then we would get cell phone records and everything else. So it's one component of an arrest. People have mentioned facial recognition. I've told most of the council here, I am not comfortable with facial recognition at this point. I've had a discussion with the city manager because I think there's too many false positives where people get accused of doing something where it's not there yet. I understand that, and I'm not in favor of using it. I don't think it's effective enough. However, the license plate reader is not in that category.
One more time, what are the safeguards that you guys have against improper use and the cases that we've seen in other municipalities of, for lack of a better term, creeping on people?
When an officer logs on, number one, they log on and it gives them, they have to do it through dual authentication. So it goes to their city issued cell phone. They've got to acknowledge that they get into the system. Once they log on, it's going to ask for a specific case number. They've got to put the case number in. Then it also asks for the type of case, and they put that in. And with that in there, and the officer is already identified by the dual authentication, it knows what officer logged on, and then it tracks that. And then our lieutenant, at least once a month, usually he does it every week just because it's part of his regular routine. He audits those to make sure that something that doesn't look right isn't occurring. The system also will monitor, and if something isn't right, like when I said the detective transposed 2 numbers in the report, it flagged that saying there's something wrong with this. We found out what it was and made the correction.
For you, Mr. Martin, actually, I'll let Mr. Carter ask you a question, then I've got a question for Mr. Martin.
I'm glad that you feel that way about the facial recognition stuff, because I do too. So obviously these devices are cameras. They can be updated. They can be changed. They're run on software. A camera's a camera. You tell the camera what to do. So it sounds like there's a suite of services, some of which we are paying for and others we're not, like a Bluetooth pinging something or facial recognition stuff. So those things, these machines can do that. We are just not paying for them right now.
With Flock, I'm familiar with the LPR that we currently have and the high-speed LPR, which we also have on 90 multi-lane. So we had to do an upgrade on that. That's all we use it for. If we want an enhancement, Flock doesn't do anything for free. I'd have to come in front of the council and say, here's the features we want to add. And given the current environment, I'm sure I'd have a lot of questions to answer before that. And honestly, I have no interest in any of that right now, because for cell phones, I consider your cell phone like your computer on your desk without your photos and everything like that. For something like that, we do need a warrant for that. We should need a warrant. The geofencing, the Shattery case that they're referencing with geofence warrants needed to be tightened up. That's a good thing. I understand that. If I need something off somebody's phone, I say, I need the department, we've got to go to a judge with probable cause, but that's your personal information, not you driving down a public roadway. I think there's a difference there. Again, my opinion.
And to be clear, and I want to make 2 things super clear. I'm not coming after the chief at all. I think he does a great job, and I very much appreciate him and every member of our PD. This has got, and again, like I said, if I were in his shoes, I may find myself feeling very differently. But it's the same argument can be made for, there are people who are getting tickets incorrectly from some of these license plate readers. I have not heard of a ton of them. I've come across about a dozen, like across the US, that I can find that I feel confident based on news articles definitely happen. But that's the same thing. License plate readers getting something wrong, somebody getting shipped a ticket, like we're kind of talking about doing with the school zones. And then in certain cases, the real rough time a person has who was in another state at the time trying to appeal this ticket they're getting mailed. And so if the license plate readers can accidentally send people the wrong tickets, just like the facial recognition, I would argue that the same point is made here. Also, the point I was making before about the capability of the devices, that's important. Sure, we're not using it for this now, but no one ever did anything bad all at once. Again, most things that I'm referencing as being the dangers of this are done progressively. And it's not like this hasn't happened before. It's happened a lot. Try to go to a local meeting and make these arguments in China.
As far as that goes, if we put a plate in or a hot sheet, which we could put plates, we have a robbery, we know the plate, we can put that in, any department can. And if it hits any LPR, it'll say that vehicle's over here. But when the detective or the officer does a query, we get that snapshot. The officer or detective then checks that snapshot to make sure the plate in the snapshot is the plate that we're looking for. One of two things: it read it wrong, which we would be able to tell, or somebody's misusing the plate. They moved it off the vehicle that it was supposed to be on onto another vehicle, which obviously happens. But again, I understand the concerns, and we go out of our way to make sure we're following all statutory requirements. And if the courts do rule one way or the other, we will follow it immediately. We have no choice. We would do that.
Thank you, Chief. Question for you, Mr. Martin. Is there a limited, is this referendum limited to the roadside flock cameras, or does that include the other community cameras that we have in place?
So this referendum addresses automatic license plate readers and cameras that collect and store license plate and other vehicular data that are either owned by the city of Lake City or are operated under contract to the city of Lake City.
Yeah.
It would not affect cameras that are owned by businesses. It would not affect cameras owned by other private entities. And it would not affect cameras that collect things other than license plate and vehicular data.
Let me clarify something a little further. Does it include city-owned cameras that monitor parks and the front-mounted police cameras on their vehicles?
If those cameras collect and store license plate and other vehicular data, then yes, it would implicate them.
Okay. This is a non-binding, what we have in this resolution is a non-binding referendum. That a yes would be to put it on the ballot and no would be to keep it off the ballot, correct?
That would be correct. That is what's before the council.
All right. Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Mayor, I would only say that I think that, and for better or worse, obviously a lot of people have strong opinions on this, but I think that voting no on this resolution is, well, I don't think it is. It is specifically saying that you're not interested in what the people think about this particular question.
That's unfair.
I don't think.
Wait, hold on. Let's not talk over each other.
Do you want me to speak?
Yes, sir. I'm pointing at you. Yes, sir.
Saying no does not interfere in my mind. I don't know if you got a flock camera in your mind or not, but it's not in mine, or a license plate reader. Saying no is no. That's the end of the sentence. It's just that simple. But I care about what the citizens think, and that's the reason why I responded the way I did. And I don't want somebody amendment rights being violated. I don't want somebody read my data or somebody else's data from the city of Lake City Police Department, from cameras that we operate. I don't want that. I just want y'all to know that. This guy here said he worked for the police department at one time somewhere. Was it in Lake City? Yes. It was out and about somewhere else. I thought you said something about you as a part of law enforcement. But anyway, I do not want any law enforcement officer misusing the systems that we have in place. If they misuse that, I think that they should be subject to disciplinary. And again, as long as we're doing exactly what the cameras are designed to do within our power, I think we should stick to that. So saying no to something is not it's an end of sentence for me. So I just wanted to make sure I got Carter to understand that.
Thank you, Mr. Jernigan. Did you have something? My final points on this, 1984 was mentioned, and we're closer to that than we've ever been. But that isn't solely because of government. It's because of the private sector and government working hand in hand to walk us there. Every time you connect to Wi-Fi, you are giving up your data willfully. Every time you download an app, you're giving up all your data willfully. Every time you purchase something, you're giving up your data willfully. And every time you then take that device and connect to a Wi-Fi network, all the other devices that are working on that Wi-Fi network are being sucked up and sent to databases that are shared with our government willfully. Since the Patriot Act and FISA have been in place, our privacy has been absolutely decimated as a citizenry, absolutely decimated. I think that these flock cameras are the least of our concerns
Absolutely.
whenever it comes to privacy, the very least, because they're in a public place. If you're driving around a public place, you're already known. Your profiles, what you do online, who you are, is pretty accurately predicted by your use of this. And I saw one of these in the back of the room that was aimed up here. This is the #1 facial recognition camera used in the world. I get a lot of comments on Facebook. I get a lot of comments on TikTok about the dangers of flock camera. And the irony of that is Facebook and TikTok are the two biggest perpetrators of massacring your privacy. TikTok in particular, because it's sharing it with its 51% partner of the CCP, which was mentioned here tonight, the Communist China Party. Facebook is a huge company because of its contract with our federal government and how it's been funded since the pursuit of the Patriot Act and the expansion of such. So I hate to minimize it, but the flock cameras are the least of our concerns whenever it comes to privacy and what we give away. Every time we sign a terms of contract, every time you get a new phone, you've already given yourself away. Your data, your location, everything. The concerns that have come up tonight, you're seen by all the devices that are in your house. Roomba, the biggest thing in the last couple of years was you being tracked around your house by cameras. And in the Roomba leak a few years ago, Roomba actively stores your visuals of your house on a database that was breached, and it happens all the time. You don't walk around naked, folks, because you are seen by everything at any time. And we've gone down a slippery slope. However, tonight we have a referendum in front of us, or a motion to put a referendum on our ballot. So that is what's in front of us tonight. It is a non-binding referendum. So once it comes out, we will have, if we pursue the referendum, the will of the citizenry or the thoughts of the citizenry on this. Mr. Carter, you had one more thing?
Just one last thing. I 100%, 200% agree with you that these, in a lot of ways, are the least of our worries. That FISA and the Patriot Act are the catalysts for so many problems when it comes to privacy. But the federal government gave those privacies away for us. We didn't do that. I don't own Roomba, but I do sit on the council for my community. There's so many problems out there that we can do nothing about. This is, quite frankly, a small struggling gasp in the world that is this problem. And the more communities that do this, the bigger that breath gets and the louder that shout gets. And maybe at some point, FISA and the Patriot Act and everything else can get out of our houses and out of our homes and out of our pockets and out of our heads. So yes, you're right. This is teeny tiny stuff, small potatoes when it comes to this problem. But it is the only potatoes that we've got to fry here.
Go ahead and vote.
Yep. All right. We've exhausted conversation. Ms. Sykes, will you please call for a vote, or please call the roll?
Mr. Carter,
Yay.
Mayor Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
No.
Mr. Jernigan,
No.
Ms. Harris.
No.
Right. Moving on to, actually, you know what? We're going to take a quick 8-minute break.
8 minutes.
Well, there you have it. There you have it. Lake City. No to flock cameras. 2-3 vote. 2 against. Or 3 against sending it to the ballot. 2 want to, but that's crazy. Flock cameras. Big news here lately. A lot of cities are getting rid of them. I got a couple stories coming up next day or so about some cities dropping them, some officers getting arrested for misusing them. So it just never ends. When is it going to stop? Stop the flock. Get the flock out of here. And yeah, so let me know what y'all thinking about this situation. Are you for flock, anti-flock, whatever? So appreciate everybody watching. Hey, everybody, have a good day. KP Law News out.